Madam Recorder. Works for me. Shall we go?
Go.
Okay. Good evening, friends and neighbors. It is the 7th of November in the year of our Lord 2022. We are at the Stayton Community Center in beautiful downtown Stayton, Oregon, and this is a meeting of the City Council. And it is 7 p.m. Clocks that, of course, haven't been reset yet, but that's all right. Let's start with a flag salute, please. Join me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see. Under announcements, are there any additions to the agenda?
Oh, I let him in.
I don't hear any. Are there any declarations of ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias? I don't hear any. We have one member visiting us via Zoom. David, good evening. Councilor McDonald is a little late there. Councilor McDonald's not with us this evening, so we'll go with the four. Any appointments, a board and commission appointment, the Planning Commission, Amy McKenzie Watts. Would she happen to be here this evening? A hand is raised tentatively, and thank you. And let's see what we've got here. An application to serve on the Planning Commission. And you've got an application in your packet, and I would suggest to the council that we approve this and let this lady serve on our Community Planning Commission. You folks have the pleasure of signing this.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
Oh.
Where'd that come from?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Hook seconds.
Wait, we're doing an appointment.
A motion and a second to approve the appointment of Amy McKenzie Watts to the Planning Commission.
They say consent agenda.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just a point of clarification. Councilor Ort said to approve the consent agenda. I think she meant to approve the appointment
I think so.
of Amy McKenzie Watts to the Planning Commission, agenda item 4.
I think so.
I rescind my motion. I apologize.
Councilor Hooks rescinds your second.
I knew what you wanted, I told you.
Well, a lot of times these are one and the same, so I apologize. Okay, so I would like to move that we appoint Amy McKenzie Watts to the Planning Commission.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Hook seconds.
And a second. Thank you. So I've got a motion and a second to appoint Amy McKenzie Watts to the Stayton Planning Commission. Is there any discussion? And if not, Tammy, would you?
Mr. Mayor.
Well, you've got a question. Go ahead.
I just want to thank you, Amy, for stepping forward to this position. And I do have a question, not for Amy, but for staff in regards to her application. Amy's also on the Arts Committee, and in her application, she acknowledges that no one's been in contact with her yet. So maybe staff tell us what's going on with the Arts Board?
I can try to tell you what's going on with Arts Board. I need to touch base with Dan. My understanding is that was one of his things, and I don't think that they've called a board committee yet. And I know we've asked him about that recently, and I don't have a status update other than that.
Any other questions? Tammy, would you poll the council, please?
Councilor Patty? Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Quigley,
Yes.
Counselor Hook.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, folks. Let's see, public comment. I don't have any green slips this evening. Is there some public comment that needs to come to the council at this time? Here's an opportunity. Nothing? No green slips? Okay. Is there more public comment built into this agenda?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Mayor, under agenda item
In the
8A.
general business there is, so we'll have more opportunities. All right. Okay, consent agenda for October 17th, City Council regular session minutes.
Can we try this again? I move to
There we go.
approve the consent agenda as presented.
Counselor Hook seconds.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the, consent agenda for October 17th. No discussion allowed on that. So, would you go ahead and poll the council again on that one, please?
Counselor Hook,
Yes.
Counselor Quigley,
Yes.
Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Patty. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next thing is a community partner presentation, Sandy M. Hospital.
And Mayor, as Maggie is coming up and anybody else that she's inviting, I just want to remind you, this is going to actually be a new item on your agenda for future council meetings, or most future council meetings, where we're going to be having community partners come to council and give updates on where they're at, and it's an opportunity for you to ask questions, but really to try to help bridge those gaps in information and things like that. So we'll turn it over to Maggie, I think.
There we go.
Do we need these backlights turned off? Or? Does anyone else care? There we go.
Oh, that's better.
Thank you.
All right, so can you hear me okay? And then can we ask if the counselor present can actually see the screen? Yes. Is that a yes?
Yes.
You said yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh.
Oh, of Counselor Patty.
Counselor Patty. Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so thank you. My name is Maggie Hudson. I am the CEO of Stayton Hospital, so I thank you for the invitation for us to present as a community partner. We have a couple introductions of people with me. Paul Hartman is our Director of Facilities. He may be familiar to most of you as well. If you have questions about the facilities, ask him. Present also is Mike Odenthal, our board chair, and Ron Etzel, board member. So that's us. So tonight, the whole goal, at least our goal, and I hope our goals are aligned, is to share, this is, I think, SANIAM 101. So just share a little bit about the hospital itself in general, and then a little bit about our role in the community, and then where we're heading as an organization. And I view this just as an opportunity for you to provide questions to us as well. We really would love to develop a working relationship. I think we saw that in the neighborhood collaborative. For those of you who attended, we really need to work productively and collaboratively in the community together. And so I invite you to, if you're not familiar with the hospital, to come, and I would love to take you on a tour and share with you the services that we offer. Is everybody familiar? Have any of you been to SANIAM Hospital for healthcare services? Okay, that's good to know. Good. Okay, so a little bit about the hospital. This gives you an image of how the hospital looked in 1953. So the community came together. So we are a community-based hospital. We, in the 1950s, the communities came together, the members, and they said, we would like a hospital in the Santiam Canyon. And that's why we're not named the Stayton Hospital. We're the Santiam Canyon Hospital, or we're the Santiam Hospital in order to represent the entire community. We came together, and these are actually from the original brochures in 1953. And some of the language that was used is really important, so that we are self-sustaining, that we're essential, that we can afford the most modern equipment. We are private, not-for-profit. We are a 501c3. We are not a taxing hospital or a district hospital. A lot of hospitals in the state of Oregon actually receive tax, they have a tax base, the way maybe a fire department would have a tax base. We do not. We are completely private, independent, but not-for-profit. They believe that we need to build this modern hospital today because you may need it tomorrow. The original cost of the hospital was $394,000, of which a lot of it was fundraised from the individual community members at that time. It was really important that we offer healthcare in the communities where people live. One of the comments was, we don't want our residents to have to go to big cities, to big hospitals. We are governed by a board of directors. 2 are here, and so we really believe that community representation is important and community leadership. And so we have a 9-member board currently, and as you can see, a few of them are present. I would point out that Ed Deal, who is running for the House of Representatives and will be elected tomorrow, is also on our board. He will be on the healthcare committee. So it's good for a hospital like ours to have representation and have a voice in our state legislature. Hospitals are very dependent upon our legislature for funding and a lot of other regulatory matters. So our relationship with the state of Oregon is very important. We're considered a type B rural hospital, so we are reimbursed differently than a larger hospital. That status is very important to hospitals like ours. And so we work a lot with our legislative bodies, making sure that certain legislation is intact in order for us to stay viable. In the 90s, so the hospital was built as a 40-bed acute care hospital. In the 1990s, we doubled in size. We expanded our ED. We brought in our first CAT scan ever, and we built the auditorium. Has everybody been to our auditorium in the past? It's probably one of the better known areas of the hospital. And then in 2013, we built what we call the new tower, and that was really a replacement hospital. And that took all of the 2- and 4-bed 1953 patient rooms, and we built out single private patient rooms. That was really important to us and to the community for us to position ourselves in an acute care hospital. We could no longer exist in the 1953 hospital building. So the first floor, if you've been in there, is a state-of-the-art surgery center. The second floor is the birthing center, as well as medical surgical rooms. And then the top floor is a 4-bed ICU, and then the medical surgical unit. On the lowest level, we have all of our sterile supply purchasing facilities areas. This growth of this tower, like I said, was vital to us as an organization. What's also been vital is to grow from being a hospital to becoming more of a health system. So we own and operate 12 clinics, albeit they're small, they're still 12, and makes us more, we have to operate more like a system as opposed to just a hospital. You can see here we have a clinic in Almsville, we have a clinic in Sublimity, we have a clinic in Mill City, and we have purchased property in Turner and expect to place a primary care clinic in the future in Turner. We consider those areas our encatchment areas. Part of our basis of being in these communities is to offer healthcare locally. Access is really an issue for a lot of our patient care base. We would love the opportunity to even offer a satellite clinic up in Detroit so that patients wouldn't have to drive all the way from Detroit to Mill City or to Stayton for their health care. That would be a future want. But it also makes us part of the economies in those smaller communities. And so we think that's another important element of being present within all of the canyon. We talk about being independent, and I think I would like to impress upon you how unique that is. In the state of Oregon, there are about 5 independent hospitals, small independent hospitals, and they're circled here. There's one on the coast, it is Columbia Memorial. There's one in the Dalles, that's Mid-Columbia. Mid-Columbia just announced its sale to Adventist, so that will no longer be an independent hospital. There's one in Good Shepherd in Hermiston, and then there's the Grand Ronde in Pendleton. South is Klamath. That is an independent system as well, but it's very large and it's pretty affiliated with OHSU. So most of the hospitals in the state of Oregon are part of systems. And there's really nothing wrong with being part of a system. But when you become part of a system, a lot of times you become the market share that serves the larger system itself. We really believe in being independent so we can determine the depth of services that we can offer. A lot of times in a small community, the OB unit is closed. And we really believe in the opportunity for a woman to have a baby in the community where she lives. And we value that. And being independent, we're allowed to continue to offer the services that we feel the community needs. We also can be more nimble. So when the vaccinations, when everybody wanted to get vaccinated before it became controversial, we were the first hospital in the state to offer vaccines to the Tier 1A workers. So we had medical personnel coming from Salem, Portland, and Coast to get their vaccines. But you can do that when you're small and you're nimble. We're partnered with other, so since that time, we have done over 55,000 COVID vaccines in the last 2 years out of our small system. We also brought testing in-house, so we have in-house COVID testing from the beginning of the pandemic. We partnered with Corban University and brought PCR testing in site. Now we have a saliva testing. You've probably heard about it. It's a very unique test that we have done in only a few other hospitals in the state and other labs. We are actually the state contracted saliva-based testing. And that's through a partnership with Corban. And the other thing that we enjoy with our independence is that we can partner with other organizations in a very meaningful way. This shows you the areas where we serve. Obviously, you're all familiar with the campaign. We may be a little bit bigger than what people really understand. We have 58, this is full-time providers. We have over 100 providers. That means physicians, physician assistants, and nurse practitioners on our medical staff. 58 of them are full-time with us. We like to think that we're part of the community, the economy, and the business. We currently employ 647 staff members. Healthcare is known as an anchor institution in a community, so we like to think that we are a vital resource. When people look to relocate, they look for healthcare offered in a community where they reside. We are a purchaser of goods and services. We believe that having a hospital and primary healthcare in a community lends itself to a healthier community, just due to access alone. We provide charity care, and we're a community partner to many groups within the communities. Just the basic hospital services, to familiarize yourself, we have an acute care medical surgical unit. We have an ICU, CCU, where we have we have tele-ICU through OHSU. We have a family birthing center, an emergency department, a lab, a diagnostic imaging, internal medicine, primary care, and specialty care. That's what you would expect to see in a hospital, but we have services that a lot of people are unfamiliar with, that they don't know that we offer. Obviously, we own and operate the ambulance service. That's very unusual. There are only 2 other hospitals in the state that operate their ambulance district. We value that because our paramedics and our EMTs work in our ER as well as work out on the ambulance responding to calls. We have a thriving orthopedic program. We have full-time cardiology coverage, pulmonology coverage. We are opening a sleep lab next month. We have lots of programs that are unusual, like diabetic collaboratives and things that you may not expect. Travel medicine and wound care are some of the services that people, it's hard to market and let people know what you do until you go out and present to them and share that with them. A little bit about the numbers. We've seen over 1.1 million outpatients since 1953. We've admitted over 110,000 inpatients. We've delivered over 9,000 babies. We've performed almost 60,000 surgical procedures, and we've had over 326,000 ER visits. We're learning that it's not just about brick and mortar, and it's not just about the healthcare services that we offer. We believe that we need to be more of a community partner. So in 2017, we opened up our service integration program. Has anybody here attended a service integration team meeting? Oh, yeah, oh, great. I would encourage you to, you guys have as well. I would encourage you to attend. We have 4 service integration teams. Does everybody know what the service integration team model? These are our 4 teams, and so we just launched one in SIO, but we have been active within our service integration programs. And we really believe this is a great collaborator of different community partners coming together and making a difference and making the community healthier, getting all of our residents to the resources that they need. It's not a duplication of services, it's actually a collaborator. We don't offer services, we bring services together. It's been very important, and it allowed us to do things like become SIT mobile, where we responded with the COVID pandemic, where we actually went out into the community delivering goods and services to those who were unable to at that time, whether based upon fear or concern about their own personal health. And then we were able to transition, obviously, into the wildfire program, and that's where we have offered the Stayton Canyon Wildfire Relief Program. We are the disaster case management for the state. We have the contract. At one point we had about 8 disaster case managers. We're co-located with other groups, the state of Oregon, as well as other partners at Anthony Hall, and we are still case managing the survivors of the wildfire. And of this fund, so we've received about $4.3 million in funds. We have distributed over $2.5 million of the funds to the residents of the San Diego Canyon, whether they be individuals or businesses. It's just been a very, very helpful resource for our communities when in a time a lot of communities were struggling to come, how do they case manage and wait for other resources to come to their aid. I would say that we were able to step up our group and respond very swiftly. I would recognize Marion County for the efforts that they came in with us and really helped us formulate a program that could then receive funding to support. So that is supported through a state contract. And it's worked out very, very well. I think it's a win-win for the canyon as well as for the as well as for us having the disaster case managers. And now we're well positioned for any future disaster that could come into play. I skipped over, and not with intention, but we're really moving more into community health and outreach. And that is an area where hospitals and healthcare delivery systems are making a big difference in social determinants of health. Helping patients get connected to resources that are not just healthcare resources, but resources that allow them to continue to get help in other areas, their social determinants of health, and we're helping manage them through that. So what's next? We talk a lot about, we have really 2 areas. We have our people infrastructure and our physical infrastructure. Our people infrastructure is what we're facing that you hear in the news and you hear everywhere. We are suffering just as much as any other healthcare system. There is a scarcity of labor, as well as the costs of labor are rising at exponential rates. And so we have struggled with keeping staff, we've struggled with staff turnover, and developing our staff. I think we have fared better than a lot of institutions, but it is an area where we continue to develop and evolve, and I would say it's one of our larger risk areas that we definitely focus a lot of our time and energy and financial commitment is in our people infrastructure. The other is in our physical infrastructure. We have an aging facility. Our roof is 70 years old. We were just joking about how this heavy rain is, what's going to happen, what leaks do we have to manage in order for us to make sure that we can address our physical infrastructure. Obviously, we have to triage what comes first. We have a dietary that is still out of working on the 1953 facility. We also have very high technology demands, MRIs, CAT scans, any surgical equipment. Everything within healthcare is very expensive, so it's a very capital-intensive business. So part of our capital is investing in our clinical delivery system. Right now, what's happening next is we are implementing Epic. So how many of you use MyChart for some of the services that you receive at other facilities? It is really the gold standard EMR, or electronic health record. It's a $5 million implementation. We're partnering with St. Charles Health System, but we need to get onto Epic. And you can see by this map, it's hard to read, but the punchline is that over 80% of all the hospitals in the state of Oregon are on Epic, and other hospitals like us are going to Epic. We cannot exist as a clinical delivery system without this electronic health record. So that is first and foremost. I know everybody would like a parking garage to be first, but really the clinical delivery is where we need to invest first when we look at what infrastructure needs are most important. This will be implemented on June 3rd of 2023. To help offset or augment some of our physical infrastructure demands, we have recently formed a foundation. And so I think you'll be hearing information about going into a capital campaign and the hospital foundation. Most hospitals have very active foundations, and in the past, we had never participated. And we feel in order to bring in to help augment the physical infrastructure needs, we won't be able to do it on operating margins alone. In the news, they make it sound as if healthcare systems have these buckets of money that they're sitting on. When you're a small institution and independent, you live on very thin margins. And although we're profitable, the profit margins are thin, and the balance between investing in your physical infrastructure and the needs there and the operating income, we need to go to outside sources, whether it's grants or foundation work. And so you'll be hearing about a foundation. We've had some significant donations that have been made as our anchor funds, and we'll be going out into a major community launch in December and into the new year. And this is the board that's been established. And the first project will be our ER project. So when I said I was what's coming down the pipeline, we have Epic, and then we have our ER project. So we are going to be expanding our emergency department. Back in 1988, when we first started counting on our record, how many patients we would see in a year, it was about 3,700. This year, we are projected to see 18,000 ER patients through our doors. That's about a 26% growth over last year alone, and we are not seeing an end in sight. So our emergency department is part of the old facility, and so we have a project that we're launching. I'll go straight to that. And this will be ideal, in an ideal world, this would be their new ED. Some of this will be dependent upon whether or not we receive more funding through our ER campaign. So dependent upon that, we could eliminate the ambulance garage that's on 10th Street. Actually, no ambulances fit in it, and it really doesn't do us a darn bit of good. And so in our perfect world, we would like to level the ambulance garage and rebuild it in another location and make adequate quarters for our EMTs and paramedics. And it would obviously be adjacent to our property, but this would open up the opportunity to have a better, I would say, curbside appeal and entrances where we could separate an ambulance entrance and a pedestrian entrance and be more accommodating for a typical emergency department. Internally, It will look more like this. We'll have a lot more secure access. We can secure the building at night in a way that we're unable to do currently. There's a lot of other advantages in what we would be able to perform with this new expansion. This is slated for next year. The project itself is about, depending upon the scope of the project, at least $5 million. When you throw in the e-power and the other needs that we have associated with it, the roof, once we get through the Oregon Health Authority, our goal is to have this built by the end of next year. So we would like, our goal is to expand our ER first, and then we're going into a master planning process that would address things as a longer-term parking solution, where the next medical clinics will be built, how we're going to grow out some of our outpatient services and other delivery systems. That's what's next. So that's where we are. That's who we are. And I would open it up if you have any questions or comments.
This is Counselor Hook. Thank you for that presentation. That was really well done. And I want to say that your guys' hospital, our hospital, because I love the hospital, is one of those points, just as a community member, I'm always so proud of it. And the way that the SIT team came together for the community is still like one of those magical like pride points. It makes me smile. It's what community is, and I just have to say that I am so proud that you guys are in our community and don't just look at Stayton as home, but the entire San Diego. I think it's beautiful. Thank you for coming here and sharing this with us. I learned stuff I didn't know, so I really appreciate the entire presentation.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Counselor. Maggie, can you go back a minute? Tell me a little bit. I think, is that EPIC program, is that record sharing thing between hospitals?
Yeah. So EPIC, so we are on an electronic health record. So your clinical record is on a platform, an electronic health record.
Right.
We have two separate records. We have a hospital record called Centric, and we have a clinic record called Athena.
Okay.
We are going to go on one platform called EPIC. And Salem Hospital is on EPIC, and OHSU is on EPIC, and all of the systems are on EPIC. And so even though we will be on the same electronic health record, it will be a different version, but our information sharing capabilities are greatly enhanced. And so when a patient is seen, because a lot of our patients are Salem patients, so when we share so many, we will be able to share clinical information in a far more meaningful way than we're able to share now. As well as it's a superior EHR in its clinical delivery. So there's a lot of added benefit. And really, a small hospital like ours, it's uncommon to be able to go onto EPIC without, just because it's cost prohibitive. But being hosted, we really believe that investment will really advance our clinical care delivery, and we don't see us advancing without it.
The reason I ask is that my VA providers are always a little bit frustrated by not being able to quickly and easily exchange and share records with San Diego when I have tests done here, but they'd like the information, and so we fuss about it.
Yeah.
I don't so much, but they do.
They do. It is difficult. Our system is difficult to access the records for other systems, and it's not very interoperable. But once we're on EPIC, that will be mitigated.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You bet.
Yes, you bet. Other comments, thoughts, folks?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Maggie, what I would tell you is that your staff is fantastic. So for my involvement with the hospitals, when I moved here 20 years ago, up to this point today, and you have a cardiologist on your team that saved my bacon, for lack of a better word, and I really, truly value his expertise, his true sense of what a patient is, and overall, as your hospital in general, really that sense of patient-provider relationship is phenomenal. I've never experienced a bad exchange, a bad service, and the follow-up that you do after the fact, asking the patient really on a scale of whatever, how would you rate these services? It's fantastic. To Councilor Hook's point, I mean, really, from a perception of it being overall in the canyon itself, it's fantastic. So I really appreciate you guys coming and giving this presentation. It's been great. So I appreciate the service of everybody there.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Maggie, I know that you're talking about like the locations and where the Santiam Hospital like kind of looks as their areas, but I have to say that when I lived in South Salem, my next door neighbor, she had both of her babies at the Santiam Hospital. And then my son was born in the new OB unit in December of 2013. And so we came from South Salem as well. And so I know that I understand why you need to expand and why you need these services, because a lot of people will come and they will choose this area, and it's because you give great service.
Thank you for sharing, all of you. We really appreciate it. We take our role responsibly, and what we understand that we're here for the community, and so our goal has been able to expand the services that we offer and provide excellent services in a small community. And I'd say over time, we continue to get better and better at it. And so our commitment is to the delivery of healthcare. But we are expanding our footprint into being more of a community partner as well. So we really see our role expanding in the area. We've seen what it can mean to bring groups together, like through the service integration programs, and we're committed to those as well. So no, we appreciate being part of the community. We view ourselves as a partner with the city, and so we look forward to more conversations around parking, but not just parking, other things as well. So our door is always open. If you're interested, I'm always happy to show you around or hear feedback or have a discussion about something else. So thank you. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Julie, if you, Maggie just talked about the parking. Did you want to maybe just bring that up a little bit, or?
Sure, I can. So as Maggie referenced, and I think about a month ago, the hospital hosted a neighborhood parking collaborative where they invited residents from around the hospital as well as city staff and counselors to attend. And there were a lot of issues and ideas that were brought up, and I took all that. I'm actually talking with my staff. I think we have some ideas that will go a little bit further than we've gone in the past, I guess I'll say. I'm still having them explore that a little bit, and then I will be bringing forward some recommendations to Maggie as well as to council. I have tentatively scheduled, I believe, December 5th as a work session to discuss kind of what we've come up with. I'm hoping to have an opportunity to talk with Maggie and her team at the hospital before that, just so they kind of are not surprised at that meeting. So a lot to do in a short amount of time, but we're hoping to move those conversations forward and then do some outreach to the community to let them know kind of what our recommendations are. So that's our tentative plan at this moment.
Thank you. Councilor Patty, did you want to jump in?
That's great. Thank you for sharing. So because you couldn't make it to Salem, I'm glad we were over here too.
In regards to the service integration team, I'm just curious because there's so much that's unique about our hospital that's here in the Canyon. And are there teams that are like that in other hospitals? Because it seems like it's just all inclusive. The amount of services that you guys connect people with is like, it covers like everything that someone would need, truly. Like to live and be healthy and have even, you know, their water going, their power going, like clothing, like everything. It's beyond just regular healthcare.
Right.
This is pretty unique, right?
It's very unique. We modeled it after Polk County. So Polk County, and I don't know the origin, where they took it from, or if they are the originators of it, but we modeled it after Polk County. And there, it was not driven by a hospital. We decided to be we didn't have a driver in Stayton, and so we decided that we would be the conveyor. And so we made that decision, but modeling it from their program. And I don't know of any other hospitals that are supporting the service integration model.
I have never heard of it, and I remember during the wildfires when I went to go volunteer, I was so impressed, just incredibly impressed by all of this stuff that you guys could connect people with, and the professionalism and the follow-up, and then even after the wildfires, it didn't stop. It only got even more organized and bigger, and you guys do an incredible job. I have to echo what Councilor Quigley said. Just everyone's always been fantastic. I have 3 little ones, and let me tell you, as a single mom having a hospital 5 minutes away with 2 boys, we've been there a few times.
I bet.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I should give credit to Melissa Bauer, who is our Director of Integrated Health and Outreach. She is really remarkable, and when I think a lot of people work at CENIUM because they can make an individual difference. You know, when you work in a small organization, you can impact its success. And I would give the success of that program, the credit is to Melissa and her team now that she has developed and grown into what it is now. And she's not stopping. And we are expanding that program. A lot of it is grant funded, so it becomes dependent upon grant funding. But we have been successful in getting quite a few grants that allow us to maintain it. We fund the service integration program itself, but the expansion, the community health workers and all those other programs, we're really doing a lot of grant seeking in order to maintain them. So, but thank you for sharing that. Well, thank you all for your time tonight. I really do appreciate the opportunity to share our story, and like I said, look forward to hearing from you into the future.
Well, thank you so much.
All right. Have a good
Yes,
day.
indeed. Thank you, Amy. Okay. Let's see. Under general business this evening, fiscal 21-22 year-end financial report as of June 30, 2022. Staff report, Susanna, our finance director.
Mr. Mayor, just a minute, we have a little technical setup real quick. Mr. Mayor, while we wait for that,
I have a text from someone who's watching at home that said that they can't hear, we could hear David or Councilor Patty, but they couldn't hear him from home.
I'm not sure. Thank you.
I had that same feedback at the last 2 meetings, I believe, so obviously we have a problem.
So is it just the people that are on Zoom that are the issue being heard, or is it?
Yes.
Because we thought we had solved the issue with the camera and the sound, but it sounds like it is the Zoom connection
That's the issue.
that's the issue.
okay, I am ready when you guys are ready.
So I'm sorry, Susanna, so I'm just trying to troubleshoot if Councilor Patty has a question Perhaps somebody can repeat that question so the audience at home can hear what he said. I don't know if it would be that way, but we will troubleshoot and try to make sure people at home can hear what Councilor Patty has said.
Okay, Susanna,
We can hear it loud and clear.
you have it.
Wonderful. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. It's that wonderful time where we get to talk about finances. Are you just so excited? So this is going to be a presentation on the how the year ended as of June 30th of 22. These are unaudited numbers, so the auditors are still working away, so numbers could change, but this is what we have. And through the presentation today, we're going to walk back through the report that's in your council packet on how that works. We're going to compare it to last year, and then we're going to take a really good look at the last 3 years and what COVID's kind of done to financially, and then look at what going forward. So on your report that you have in your packet, the pinkish colored side is the year ending in 21, and the blue is the one that we're talking about this evening that ended as of June of 22. And you can see the white there compares the budget, and then as you look down on the expense side, you can see that we still have the percentages. Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Excuse me, but is there a way to sharpen the focus on that at all? Is that as good as it gets? Is it my poor glasses as well as?
I think it looks pretty clear.
It's off?
Oh, I think it's on.
Yes, let me see if it's sharing. Oh, let me go here. Start over. Can you see that now, David?
Councilor Patty, are you seeing a presentation on the screen?
Okay, great. Mr. Mayor, is that better on focus?
That's fine there.
Okay, is that better? Okay.
I think it's that table that
Well,
might
the
just be
numbers
hard.
get smaller.
Is that better? Okay.
Yeah, it's actual chart.
Hmm,
That's,
It's just me.
no, it's not just you.
It's the chart? Okay.
Okay.
I'll use a different font.
And we can certainly email this out to counselors so that they can see it. It doesn't help you necessarily tonight, but Susanna will walk you through the numbers, but we'll email it to you so you can see the full screen version instead of the notes, and that might help.
That's fine. Go ahead.
This is a snapshot of what you have. It is literally this report that you have, your financial report. This is just a little snapshot, just kind of walking you back through which columns are which on your report. It looks like, did it go in your council packet white?
Yes.
Oh, oops. Okay, that doesn't help either. So the very first column is the prior year that ended June of 21. And then the next column is ended June of 22, and that's the one we're talking about tonight. It's in the middle of audit. And then your next column is your budget. And then on the revenue part, which is the part you're seeing here, it's telling you the difference between revenue and budget. And then on the expense side, when you go to the bottom half of your report, it's talking about the percentage spent to budget. And like every quarter, we talk about the red, yellow, and green. This year, or at the end of the year, we're looking at anything that's we spent under 80% compared to budget is in the green. And if our budget is spent 80 to 90%, it's in the yellow. And if we spent higher than 91, that's why your number is red. And it's not really that it is terrible if we spent 90% of the budget or 70%, but it is a good indicator to look at overall how the year went. which funds spent more and why. Is this consistent with prior years? Is there something we need to adjust? So those are just good conversation pieces we begin to have with the department heads when we look at that. If we were, ultimately, we'd like to see in the 70, low 80% range of budget, because if all of the departments spent 100% of their budget every single year, it would be difficult to plan for projects ahead and those kind of things. But that's why this is good, kind of a navigating tool. And overall, the city spent 74% of their total budget, so that's good. And the few that are in red here is mostly due to materials and services costs went up higher, or some unexpected maintenance cost, is why the ones that are in the 90s at this point. And the police department generally stays in the 90s as the prior years back. Overall, looking at total revenue, you can see that intergovernmental is 18% of the budget this year, which is a little bit higher than normal years in the past. And most of that is just because we have the one-time dollars coming from ARPA and some other grant funds that came in. That's why that went up a little bit. Taxes is still in the 26%, and charge for services is still almost half. Other than that, that's about what we normally see on a regular basis from year to year. So that's the overall city breakdown for revenue. And when we're looking a little more closer at the details and we're looking at each type of fund, the taxes are higher than the prior year because we've added the levies. So we should expect to see that have a difference because we added the recreation levy and the library levy from the levy that expired. So that's why you'll see an increase there. In charge for service, we've kind of had some up and down things going on, and that's why you're seeing an overall 75,000 less. In 21, we didn't charge any late fees for anybody. We put everyone on payment plans to help them navigate through COVID. The pool was closed for a big majority of that. But then at the same time, with those two things being down, the SDC funds were a lot higher that year. And then that's why you're just seeing a $75,000 less than the difference between those all weighing each other out. And when you're looking at intergovernmental funds, that's increased because we have all those ARPA dollars. We have the ARPA federal funds. The library got a small ARPA grant as well. And then we got the Marion County grant that's in the general fund as well. So that's reasons why intergovernmental is higher than the prior year. And then the other revenues, the big reason for the decrease is really just that we got a one-time donation of $110,000 we got in 21 that helped to put the roof on the pool. So those are kind of just the really big reasons for the differences between last year and this year for the revenues. Any questions on that? Nope. Okay. And then when we're looking at beginning fund balance from prior year to this year, we see that it's 2.4 million higher. That is a combination of we received these one-time grants we haven't finished spending. We reduced expenditures over the last couple of years, unsure of what COVID would do and what kind of impacts on the city. We held back on capital projects and we didn't fill vacant positions. So that's the reason you see a bigger beginning fund balance is because of these 2 to 3 years, these 2 years prior, we were really proactive in being careful because we weren't sure where the economy was going to go. And we look at the expenditures citywide, you see that our materials and services at 32% and our personnel salaries have come up a little bit, but they're at 44%, and capital projects are 24%. And overall, this, like I said earlier, that 74% of what we budgeted, the city spent as a whole, combined with all funds together. And then we're looking at capital projects. We had 3.1 million budgeted and we were able to complete 2.2, which is about 70% of the budget. And mostly the reason for delay there is we couldn't get supplies or they couldn't get the projects in for the not completing all the tasks, all the capital projects that we had planned. But that is a big improvement from the 2 prior years when we were holding some back. Any questions on any of that part? so far for the prior year budget differences. Okay. So here's the big thing going forward is where are we at with COVID? We've been very proactive the last couple of years. We've, like I said earlier, we've cut back on expenditures. We held back on vacant positions. We were really careful so that we didn't have a big crash, right? And we didn't. Luckily, that proactive helped, but wasn't there yet. Whoops. It jumped without me. So where is the economy at right now? From listening to The Economist, we're moving forward. The economy's picking up, things are going back. I looked up at unemployment, you see that slide here. You see the little red arrow is there at 20 when unemployment was over 14%. And you can see now in September of 22, we're in the 3-ish% range. So unemployment is definitely down to a more manageable number. That's exciting. That means people are coming back to work. Then I went to the Treasury's website to look at where they think our economy is. And you can see from their slide on this side, their little red arrow again, where it's down really low is the peak of 2020 when COVID was in full swing. And you can see that we've had a nice growth between our gross domestic product and income. The gold line in the center is the average of the two. So that's great news. The economy is moving. That's wonderful. The big question is how did it look in Stayton? So now I'm going to walk you through since 19, when that was the last full year before COVID hit, through 22, and kind of talk about what the big picture looked like and what COVID has done now that we know that we're moving into a moving economy. You're taking a look at property tax, and this is property tax without the levy money. This is just the base property tax in the general fund. You can see that our percentage of change, by the time we hit 19, we had a 8.4% increase, and then we kind of did this downhill slide till we only saw 1.6% increase from 21 to 22, which basically kind of almost flatlined us for the last 3 years. There's not a lot of growth. We lost some ground, and this is literally looking at what we've collected. It's not looking at the tax values or anything. That's just what we've collected. And also our collection rate went down a little bit in 21 and 22. We dropped down to 94% collection when the prior years we were always in around 95%. So we've seen a little bit of a flatten out here for our property tax through 20, 21, and 22. So on this side, it takes a look. So what I did here is this line up here, the goldish colored one is the expenditures for the general fund. And then the blue is the current year property tax. And then the gray is all the other revenues combined. And then the orange is the one-time grants. Because the ARPA money, it's important that we look at those funds separate because we don't get those every year. And this is a really good illustration where you can really see that we worked hard to keep our expenditures low, and that offset with pretty much flatlined revenues that came across for those last 3 years. And our one-time grant money was the CDBG grant we finished up, the CARES Act, the Marion County ARPA money, or the Marion County fund that we help with businesses, and then the ARPA funds. That's what these are in this orange line. And then I thought, well, let's take it one more with the general fund and just kind of take a look at what that looks like. So I put all of the revenues together against all of the expenditures. The expenditures is the orange. So you can see by us really being strategic and holding things back, it really dropped it down. Why we see the revenue really took the blue line, took a really straight line. So that's a good picture of what happened in the general fund through the pandemic. And then if we switch over and take a look at SDCs, SDCs is a kind of a unique thing because it's really built on what's happening. But you can see in 20, where that's the red, it was really low. There was like nothing moving. And then in 21, we finished up Taco Bell, and we finished up some homes in the Lambert subdivision. And then you can see comparing 19 to 22, they're much more close in line. which is, we average around 20 to 25 homes we grow a year. So we can see that SDC funds are kind of back to, for this year, kind of back to what our normal growth pattern is. When we take a look at utility funds, we've had a lot of things happen in our utility funds. Again, the red is to 20. That is our, that's when COVID started. So we also had NORPAC close. We also, when we stopped late fees for the 2 fiscal years, we put payment plans in place. So you can see as we move into 22, it went up a little bit, but a lot of those payment plans from 20 and 21 are still coming in. We got an outside agencies to help with people who couldn't pay their utility expenses. And by 22, with all those guys still catching up, where everyone is pretty much back on track on their regular schedule, all our payment plans have been met. I think maybe there might be, well, at least there was a few months ago, there was like less than 5 left that were still getting there. But other than that, everyone's back to normal. And so you kind of see the unevenness. And then you also have some growth in there so we're kind of getting back on track with our utility fund.
Mr. Mayor? Susanna,
Question, go ahead.
so you were talking about NORPAC closing. Is that, I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, I understand COVID in 2020, but like the flat line of property taxes, because I guess in my mind, most people have mortgages and are required to pay their property taxes with their mortgage, and your mortgage actually pays your property taxes. So did NORPAC leaving like mess with our property taxes? And that's why and then also property taxes go up. So even if we're getting 94% as opposed to 95%, the taxes, like the money that we receive goes up from each house.
That's a tough question to answer because I didn't go in and look exactly, see what NORPAC's property taxes were. But not everyone has their property taxes paid through their mortgage. There's a big percentage of people that just still pay them separate. And so they just make a lot of later payments. Our prior year collection is going to be a little bit higher going forward because that's it. So I think that's the biggest difference is people really started slowing down on what they could pay. And usually property taxes, the economy crashes and then you'll see the effects in property tax. And that's why you saw it go down, down, down. And then now that things are picking back up, you'll see property tax will lag behind and then it'll start to catch up. It's just the timing of how it works. The property excess value, of course, went up and down a little bit. But this was just really looking at who was paying.
And I asked Susanna kind of a similar question because I was a little confused by that. And I think the issue is not, I mean, the taxes continued to go up. They just didn't continue to go up as fast as they had been going up. And so that's why it sort of looks like it's flatlined. I mean, we're still seeing an increase in property taxes, just not at the rate that we would have expected before COVID. Correct, Susanna? Go back to the slide.
So so you're looking at this slide, you see we made an 8.4% increase and we only saw 3.8% increase. So, and then it went to 4 and then 1. So that's what I mean by it should have gone, like way higher than it should have stayed. It should have stayed in the 4-ish% across, right? But it didn't, it dipped. It dipped, then it got a little better and then it dipped again. You can just see people are struggling keeping up with their payments. And then now we're getting more houses and that's gonna make a change.
Susanna,
Yeah.
what's the reporting window for fiscal year 22? Isn't it still open for people to submit their property taxes?
For 22,
Mm-hmm.
if whatever they pay for their 22 taxes now comes to us as prior year.
So whatever comes due between the next 2 weeks or whenever the deadline is, goes to 21?
It goes into 23's fiscal year now.
Okay, it's the new fiscal year.
Yeah, so this is done.
So
Everything-
22 is completed at this point.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Susanna, trying to get a handle on great big picture, national fiscal policy. What do you do with these pretty angry folks that think we should have just sent all that federal money back? But that's the problem with inflation, is too many goods and too much money chasing too few goods and services. We should have dug up $700,000 to fix that one filter bed ourselves, rather than do it with that ARPA money. What do you do with that?
Well, if you look back through all my presentations for the last 3 years and you saw the expenditures against revenue for what's come in, we haven't been able to keep up with needing to get that done. So when I go forward on some of these slides, you're going to see the benefit of these one-time grant dollars taking pressure off of the community.
Well, I absolutely agree, but what do we do with all these angry voices that think that's part of our problem, is just being,
Well,
we've just been at the trough too often.
we just try our best to explain where we're at and hope they understand. Because our ultimate goal is to ensure the services of the city are safe and water's safe and sewer goes where it's supposed to go and stormwater doesn't take out our houses, right?
I absolutely agree. Go ahead, this is fine, thank you.
And property taxes is one of the hardest things because I don't know how Marion County makes their decisions. You know, and then Measure 5 plays in effect and all these things, right? So it's not a direct, the house is 400,000, so our property taxes should be, and the dollar that's in your budget, we only get a little piece of that dollar. So this is just the effects, is that we see that it's hanging out really close at 2 million, and there's not a big jump at this point, just a slow line up. Does that kind of help? Yes, David? Yes, they could, and I can get that question answered.
Just for the record, for people at home, Councilor Patty asked if we could go to Marion County and get clarification on an explanation on the decrease or the less than stellar increase in property tax revenue.
I'm just making myself a note. And I can do that in my next presentation, like how I can update that information for you. Or I can send it in an email, whatever the city manager would like. And so, any other questions on that so far, or we move forward and we're looking at the history of ODOT's revenue? Okay. So on this one, you can see that that just the gas tax from ODOT is pretty much moving nicely. You can see it kind of hovered around there through those 4 years, and then the red is COVID, of course, and then in 21, we got the additional 118,000 from their ARPA money to offset our loss in revenue, which brought us to 700,000, which was actually, I don't know how they did their math to determine what they sent us. All they did was send us the check, but it actually did offset our revenue quite well, and you can see in 22. So, like, we can say that our state tax hasn't, I think we've gained our ground back, which is really nice. And then here's the local gas tax from the city of Stayton. You can see that we're still hovering down a little bit from 2019. If we were to compare, you can see that we're still a little bit lower. And then in 20, of course, we were only at 177. So what we do with expenditures, so on this slide, you're looking at the blue line being salaries, the orange line being materials and services, and then the gray being capital projects. And you can see that our capital projects were delayed in 20 and 21. You can see where that, and you can see in 22, we began to put our projects back into action. And you can also, we got the sand bed completed in 22 as well. So that's why you can see this gray line here making this little dip and making it climb back up. And in this fiscal year, we've got projects moving as well. And then you can see where we've been proactive with materials and services doing the same thing. We were extra careful. We held back on costs we actually needed to. The pool was closed, so that added some loss. We had things closed during the ice storm and the fires, so that delayed some. Even though we had some increased costs, it also froze some costs. So you can see where we were productive in being very careful. And then in the salaries, you can see it's almost flatlined because we didn't fill positions. And even as salaries increased with COLAs each year, there wasn't a big change because we slowed down on filling vacancies. So you can see that our expenditures were doing really well, keeping up with our close to flatline revenues over these 3 years. So what does that mean going forward? That means that our department managers are amazing. They really were proactive in ensuring that we didn't have to do furloughs, that we weren't upside down, because what they've done allowed with all of this proactive work is they put our reserves in a nice place so that we can move forward with expenditures, because our challenges going forward, now the economy's moving, is the growth of revenue going to speed up and get in front of the growth in cost. Our CPI rate in March was 8.7. In October, it's 8.2. It's not changing. Gas prices are still really high. Supply lines are still an issue, which still keeps driving the cost up. And salaries need to increase to keep up with those changes. So as we're moving forward, as we're looking at what we'll do with the one-time grant money, we're going to use that to our advantage as we fill in the gap and the extra money we have in our beginning fund balance to cover that gap as we watch over the next couple fiscal years, as we see how the economy grows and what kind of pace revenue goes against expenditures. Any questions on that part? Okay. So what we're doing right now, being active, is we're really looking at how we want to utilize the ARPA funds. We're doing the utilities rate study so we can figure out the best way of going forward with that. We're in the middle of developing the utility master plan, so we'll have a new, fresh look at what our priorities for our projects need to be. We're looking at future one-time grant monies for some of the big projects that we need to do. We'll continue to monitor the economy and watch that revenue growth against the cost of expenditures and keep you guys informed on a regular basis as we move forward with the fiscal years ahead. But I'm very happy that we ended 22 in a nice stable position, and we have that room to meet the needs, to get the positions filled, to get the stress off the staff, to move forward with our projects, and know that it's not going to tank us, that we can sustain that change over the next couple of years going forward, as long as we plan it wisely. Any questions?
From this end, thank you, Suzanne. Other
you all.
folks, jump in here if you like.
All right, I am done. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you, Suzanne.
We'll look forward to seeing you again.
Yes, it's nice to be back.
Yes. Indeed. Okay. Any public comment on that? The public sits out there. I got somewhat dumbfounded by all these numbers. I don't know. It's good to try to understand this stuff. Council discussion. Any?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Where'd it come from?
Over here.
Oh, over here. There we go. Go ahead.
Councilor Ward.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, Susanna, now that you already went back to the back of the room. I'm sorry. So looking forward.
Takes a bit to digest all this, you know.
Right, like,
I mean, it's a lot of information, it's good information, thank you.
So looking forward, do we have any concerns about the economy and, like you were saying, challenges with inflation and gas prices and whatnot, and whether we are, we aren't, or we're going into a recession? So these just kind of like, can you speak to that a little bit and like forecasting?
So the economists really thought we were gonna like hit it this year, when they were talking sooner, because a recession is gonna come. We always have a recession, it's expected. But this recently, and that's kind of why I still left the CPI rate in the 5-year plan at 6% for next year, because I figured we would come down some, but we're not really coming down. So that makes me nervous that we might be going higher. But they are thinking that at this point that our inflation is really based on the natural repercussions of a supply and demand society. And it's really, there's some key things, vehicles, food, gas, that's really driving up the CPI rate at this point. And so they've kind of pushed their thought back that it could come more sometime toward the end of next year maybe. They don't really have a crystal ball, but they kind of kept pushing it back. So as I'm looking at forecasting and I'm doing with models right now, I'm just increasing CPI rate and pushing the crash further back. But they're hopeful that we'll come back into a 2-ish% CPI like it used to be once the supply lines finishes. The war is also a huge factor against the gas prices, and the gas prices is what's driving up, especially our food costs, because it's costing a lot for these vehicles to move the products. So, over the next few months, before I really get into budget, I'm going to continue to watch them closely and to see if any of these economic factors change. I mean, if the war ends, that will definitely make a difference on our impact. But at this point, we just move forward as keeping our CPI rate kind of high, knowing that crash is out there a year or so down the road.
Thank you.
Welcome. And I think that's why we're in a good place, because the beginning fund balances are really there to help with these kind of situations. With emergencies, like when we had the ice storm and all those things, and as well as trying to keep in front of the wave of the economy. So I know other cities have taken COVID a lot harder hit and had a lot more struggles. I feel like as long as we're strategic going forward, that we should be able to weather whatever's going to come going forward.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Councilor Hook, I just wanted to thank you for all the work that you have done since you've come on board to sort of avoid some of those major dips. You've always, as far as I can remember, you've always had forward thinking. And as a counselor, I really appreciate that you've done that, because I think it's because of that forward thought that you've had that we haven't seen some of those huge dips, because you have thought we need to prepare just in case it doesn't turn out the way that we are expecting it to turn out. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Thank you again. And if you have something else, you can always ask me later, because you know when all those numbers just soak in, it takes you like, you're like, whoa, why didn't I think of that? So again, don't forget you can email or ask through Julie, whichever way she likes it. But I am here to help as the numbers soak in.
Councilor Patty, do you want to jump in on this at all?
Councilor Patty, did you have anything to say or add?
You're welcome. It's worth all the sleepless nights. I am very passionate about my position, and I really want the city to be okay. It's very important to me. So thank you. I really appreciate it so far that it's working in a positive direction. I really appreciate your support.
Thank you, Susanna. Okay, communications from city staff. City manager updates, announcements, beers and cheers. Go ahead.
I have actually quite a few things to say this evening, but I'm going to have Captain Johns come up real quick. She's got a couple of announcements from the police department, and then I've got a few others as well.
Okay.
So perfect pairing with our presentation from Santiam Hospital tonight. Stayton Police Department is joining the challenge No Shave November and teaming up with Santiam Hospital and clinics to bring awareness to the fight against cancer. So our officers again this year, clean shaven November 1. Those that are choosing to participate, make a donation or fundraise money to do their participation fee, and then we're partnering with other businesses, individuals throughout the community to raise funds for the Can Cancer Fund. So this will go the entire month of November. At the end of November, we'll do voting for the best overall beard and the best Paul Bunyan beard, and then make our final donation to the hospital. Last year we were able to give them a nice little check, which was very nice. The other thing that we're doing with the holidays coming up is Hope for the Holidays, and that's partnering with Family Building Blocks. And across the city departments and the police department, individuals are choosing to adopt either children or families that we then go out and purchase holiday gifts for. Usually what they do is it's a book, clothing item, and a toy, and then those are all collected and given to Family Building Blocks to make brighter Christmases for these families. So those are proud partnerships that we have and are continuing forward again this year.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.
And then I have a few announcements as well. One, just a reminder that our offices will be closed on Friday for Veterans Day. Chief Friesendahl's retirement party gala is tomorrow from 4 to 7 here. If you guys are able to attend, that would be wonderful. And then I wanted to, on here it mentions the city veterans recognition. As we were getting close to Veterans Day, I asked Alyssa what we do for city staff that are veterans, and was told that we really haven't done anything in the past, and I wanted to change that. I don't feel like I've gone as far as I want to ultimately go, but I went as far as I could go within the time I had. But I'm going to pass this around, and I'll read it as it's being passed around. My plan is that hopefully tomorrow morning we'll put this out on social media. And I'll just read it. The City of Stayton recognizes and honors all veterans, including but not limited to our employees and volunteers. And then I have identified employees and volunteers who are willing to and have told me that they want to be recognized for their service. So Lance Ludwig is an Air Force veteran who works in Public Works. David Friesendahl is a Navy veteran who works in the police department. Daniel Reynolds is a Marine veteran in the police department. Hank Porter is an Army veteran who's on City Council. David Patty is an Air Force veteran on City Council. Dan Brummer is a Navy veteran on the Parks and Rec Board. Stephen Sims is a Navy veteran who's on the Parks and Rec Board. And Michelle Wunderling is an Army veteran on the Library Board. In order to show these veterans and all veterans in our community that we thank them and support them for their service, we encourage you to participate in Operation Greenlight for Veterans by replacing your porch light bulb with a green bulb through the month of November. This is something that counties, it's through the National County Association that kind of is spearheading this. Other cities in the area, including Independence, is doing this. I hope that next year we do something a little bit more. But to get this started, I purchased, and it's a gift from me, not from the city, so some green light bulbs, if you guys wanted to. Yes. You'll see that they are different because Ace Hardware only had 3 green light bulbs. And Bimart had more. So next year, I'd like to do a little bit more, maybe have a proclamation, have something a little bit more out there, but we definitely want to recognize our staff and volunteers that are part of the city for their service. So that concludes my recognition.
Thank you very much. That's nice.
Yes, thank you for that.
Thank you.
We'll go all out on Veterans Day. Our VFW group gets together at Weimar and Safeway and passes out these little red buddy poppies. Yeah. People thank us and generously donate. It's a neat day for us. Okay, communications from mayor and council. I have one that a lot of us are going to see as pretty good news. Dated October 26th, sent to me from the Department of Transportation. And to whom it may concern, the Department of Transportation Driver and Motor Vehicle Services will resume regular hours at the Stayton DMV field office located at 11656 Sublimity Road Southeast, Suite 400, Sublimity, Oregon, effective November 7th, Monday, 2022. The hours of service for the Stayton DMV office will be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then the rest of it is EVR, whatever that is, EVR to complete their transactions, online services, da-da-da-da-da. But you can do everything that we've always done at a local DMV, and so that is just a nice thing. Although many of us have had okay experiences with the Salem offices, this is better. And it gets a lot of action. People come from Lebanon, Scioto, up the canyon, Silverton, all over the place to use this DMV office. So it's a neat thing, and I'm pleased to announce that. Other things? I bet there's nothing that amazing.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to remind people that if you have not exercised your right to vote for whatever it is that you're deciding to vote for, the deadline is tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Oh, get in and vote. Yeah, good idea. Yeah. Ooh. Hey, the ads go away too.
We have our box outside the library, the 24-hour box to drop them off, so. Due before 8 tomorrow.
Well, lucky for us, there's nobody out there with guns making sure that our elections are safe, and so, and all the unkind and good, not good stuff that goes with that's around. Thank God not here.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
in light of the weather that we've had this week, I'd like to know from staff if we have any sources for sandbags in the event we should have some flooding in town.
Yes, we do. We actually put out on social media, and we will do so again if we need to, if the rains are what they are. We do have sandbags at the Knife River facility just over the bridge in Scioto, and they provide the sand to fill those sandbags. And they are, as I understand it, they're out there now.
If you look at the Office of Emergency Management for the state, I think there's a link in there to someone that coordinates that, and it'd be great to have our name
Oh, yes.
on that
Okay, thank you.
source.
She's done writing.
You're fine.
Anything else? Counselor Patty, parting shot? Okay. Anything? Counselors? Shall we go home? Let's do it. All right. Good night. Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.
Oh, yeah, we did that. Oh, you did see it though, right?